Hello, everybody, and welcome to Church at Home with Rachael for Monday. I believe it's the 18th of September. I am just so confused. Coming back from holidays, normally I'm like in a groove, I get caught up. I am so far behind. Pray for me. One of the things I'm behind on is actually paying attention to what's going on around me. And one of our subscribers emailed me on the weekend to say, hey, you didn't mention Rosh Hashana this past weekend, which is the Jewish New Year. Um, and you know what? I have enough trouble keeping up with the Christian calendar. Unless it's in my face. I don't know about the other ones. The reason I usually know about things from the Islamic side is because Rob, as a chaplain in the military, deals with Muslims, Muslim recruits who come in and they talk about Eid and all of the dietary restrictions and things they need for training. And he comes home and it's like, oh yeah, it's that time of year. He doesn't often have any Jewish people coming in. So wasn't even aware. And I have to say, my calendar, I use a church calendar, and it has all the feasts for the Christian church, but it doesn't have those interfaith um, different things on it. So I was not aware that this past weekend was Rosh Hashanah, the New Year. And so, for any of you who are Jewish or Messianic Jews, Hana Tova, good year. I hope that your Rosh Hashanah was a good weekend. I was looking it up a little bit, and it said something about they like to eat. They share sweet foods so that to represent the call to have a sweet year. I like that idea. I really like that idea. I've got a sweet tooth, or more than one. Happy New Year, Rosh Hashanah, Hana Tova, a little bit late to all those who celebrate Rosh Hashanah. Good for you. God bless you. Um, Yud Hey Vav Hey bless you, and may you have a wonderful, wonderful year. But it's kind of time. The timing is pretty good too, because another subscriber reminded me that today is the anniversary of the death of the notorious RBG, RGB, or RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsberg, who was, I wrote it down here, she was the first Jewish woman and she was the second woman appointed to the Supreme Court, United States. If you haven't read about Ruth, you need to. What a spitfire. What an incredible, incredible person with an equally successful husband and raised a family. Like, just one of those examples of being able to focus and just put yourself to good work using the talents you have. I can only imagine that she's rolling over in her grave right about now. All the work that she did, Sandra Day O'Connor before her, all the work that those women have done to make sure that women have rights, and that diverse parts of our communities have rights, and watching those being eroded away, it's a pretty terrifying thing. So um, happy, let's think though on that notorious RBG today, and maybe we can pick up the mantle wherever we are in the world, that we can be strong, especially for women, be strong and make decisions that help the community intentionally. I think that's important. I have been thinking a lot lately about helping the community and recognizing what does that mean to help the community. There's always those who push for action, like the teenagers. I've always had hope for the church, even if there's only a few teenagers in it, because as long as there are some young people, there is fresh thought. And I don't know that it's, some people would argue that every young person has a streak in them to come back and revolt and protest. I don't think they do necessarily, but I think they all have that. They bring to the table, they bring to the conversation that sense that they have a different perspective. I remember when I was in grade 9, so it'd be about 1985, and the Niagara Falls School Board had 5 high schools in Niagara Falls, and they were looking at how they could deploy their resources better. So they made a decision that they were going to specialize each of the 5 high schools. West Lane, which is where I was, would be sort of the more computer side of the world, and A. N. Meyer would be the more maths, and well, math would also be at Wesley, but it would be like those who were going on. We had grade 13 at the time, sort of the finished grade 12. That was the prep year for university. So those going on to college, university, People wanting to become teachers, lawyers, things like that. Stanford was the arts. If you wanted to do drama, if you wanted to be in music, you would go over to Stanford. And FCVI was going to be the collegiate, the sort of the place where folks go for practical skills. And then I think it was Lord Elgin that was more of those folks who struggle in school a little bit more, and that would be the place where they would be. And the idea was that these students, in like starting in grade 9, would have to determine what their future would look like in 4 or 5 years, enough to say which school they needed to go to, and then we would be bused to where they went. Well, I was at Wesleyan simply because I lived near there. That was the criteria: go to your local school. And one day in May, the students' councils in all of the schools determined we were going to go on strike. And we would go out and we would picket and we would sit in outside until they made the decision not to change this. No, I think I was in grade 10, actually. I was in grade 10 at the time, so 1986. And so a whole lot of students did. Now, our teachers warned us. We all had to go to class and get our attendance taken. And then 15 minutes into first period, we would all just get up and walk out. And our teachers warned us that if we did so, we would be penalized. We would be counted as absent for the day. Anybody who missed a test, it would be an automatic 0 because you didn't take the test. It was pretty serious. I was in Mrs. Marchese's English class, and I had other classes, but it was toward the end of grade 10, and things weren't that day weren't too bad. No tests. I probably wouldn't have done it if there were tests. I was that kind of student. But we all walked out, and we sat on the hill. And round about noon, we noticed that none of the grade 13 students had walked out. Those who were preparing for college and university had stayed in class. They weren't affected. They weren't going to have to go to a different high school. But I don't think that's why they didn't participate. I think it's because they realized that what we were doing and the way we were doing it wasn't organized. It wasn't going to make a difference. It was more like a whole bunch of high school students across the city giving a big finger to the school board without actually having talked about what we were doing, without having a platform, without having the common sense to sit down and say, what is it we are demanding, or what is it we are speaking out against? We were just angry and we weren't going to do it. And then I noticed that the grade 11s and 12s that were with us until lunchtime, they sort of disappeared. They didn't come back after lunch. And by 2 o'clock, some of us were back in our fourth period classes because there was just no purpose of being out on the hill when no one else was there. Lots of people just went home. It did not work. We didn't get our way. The schools specialized, and I went off in grade 11 to A.N. Meyer, and I had the best year of high school I've ever had. Not because we were specialized, but because of the opportunity to meet incredible, incredible teachers and take classes that I was going to take anyway had I been at Wesleyan. But just the stars were aligned, and it was a really, really good year for me. I also appreciated being on the bus because we took city buses that were specialized. They would just pick us up and have a route. But I had to be picked up at 7:30 in the morning for a 9 o'clock start of school, and we got out of school at 3, and I didn't get picked up until 4 o'clock, which meant I had lots of time to spend in the library, and Meyer had the best library. So I spent a lot of time in the library, studying and reading and really just loving being a student. So it worked out well for me. Within a year or two, they went back to the normal way of things. But it's had me thinking through, I did my thing. I protested. And you know what? I didn't. I did not do what some people think is natural for teenagers to do. I participated with a massive group of people to do something for a purpose, but I didn't know what the purpose was. And looking back, I wish I had. I wish I'd known something, because in that time period, before you look through the glasses that tell you that the world is, politics is perverse and things are really difficult and money's tight and you can't threaten, you can't go on strike because you might lose your job. Before you hit that stage in life when reality hits you, and you're still in that stage in life as a teenager when you really do believe that the world can be different, that's an incredible place to be. And that's something that I think we underestimate or overlook in our teenagers and our young people. We need to be encouraging them not to protest necessarily, not to get violent, not to, stomp out of class, but we need them to realize that they have a place at the table, that we should be inviting them to our town councils. We should be inviting them to the planning meetings for communities. We should be asking them, What do you see? What do you want? And not necessarily be say, well, what do we want? What do the teenagers want that we can give it to them? Tennis courts or a second lunch or all that silly stuff. But how do they see the world as they are growing up and into it? What might they see that will impact the world later on? Lots of conversation below the border and now becoming above the border about our politicians and who will vote for them. And I think what people are not paying attention to is the decisions that are being made by older people, usually older white males, it seems to be, or people who with the money today, 15, 20 years from now, a lot of them aren't going to be able to vote. They're going to be 6 feet under. Um, and who will be able to vote? The 10-year-olds of today, the 17-year-olds who aren't yet able to vote but soon will be. If we encourage them to speak and we listen to their voices today, they will change the future for the better. If we don't listen to them today and we ignore what they have to say, by the time they are able to change the world and those who are stopping the world from being changed, they'll be gone. But the voices who will come up will be angry and frustrated because they weren't listened to when they were younger. We really need to pay attention to those voices that aren't being heard. We need to be the Ruth Bader Ginsbergs in the world saying, there's a different voice that needs to be heard. In her case, a Jewish woman's voice, which needed to be heard. And she changed the world for how many generations of women? We have young people coming up who have opinions and ideas and visions that maybe haven't learned how to properly articulate or clearly articulate what it is they believe or what they are learning to believe or growing to believe. But what they have to offer is a picture of a future that will happen one way or another when we're in our older years and less able to reverberate back against it. But what they have to offer is something that could very well be the most beautiful thing that will happen in our lifetimes. But we have to listen. Let's listen to the future Ruth Bader Ginsburgs of the world. Let's listen to the young men who are coming up through the ranks and saying, I see a different future. And it doesn't have to be as scary as the one that looks like it's coming. We need to listen. We need there to be the opportunity to say to a whole new group of people, Shana Tova, good year. We need them to be able to say it's going to be a good year because we're in control and we have a vision. May we recognize and facilitate and bring into a Rosh Hashana for the future. May we bring into, may we listen to our young people and work with them so that together we can celebrate a sweet year and sweet years to come. The future is indeed in the hands of our children. But right now we have the ability to share with our children our hopes and dreams and allow them to start articulating theirs, that maybe together we could, in a multi-generational way, create a future that is a whole heck of a lot better than the one that appears to be on the horizon. Have a great day. God bless. And for those of you who are Jewish, happy Rosh Hashana. Happy New Year. God bless.